This webinar series is dedicated to providing viewers with a practical understanding of creating HDSLR video and explaining which tools and techniques will help convert their photographic knowledge into filmmaking prowess. Now today we're going to investigate the concept of basic camera movement and what tips and tools will help you make that next step beyond the still and closer towards unlocking your hidden filmmaker. Now I do want to take a quick second to thank Cinevate for sponsoring today's webinar. Now Cinevate creates tools for filmmakers like us, and they are dedicated to continually helping us show the world our stories. Feel free to check them out on the web at www.cinevate.com. I also want to take a quick second to thank Triple Scoop Music for providing us with some of the music for today's videos. They have thousands of royalty-free songs available for download on their website, so check them out at www.triplescoopmusic.com. And lastly, I want to say thanks to the guys at Loaded Boards and Adam Colton for the videos and stills they contributed to today's webinar. To be honest, without them, we would have been left without some pretty awesome video content to show you. So I really want to say thanks to them, and thanks to you for joining us today. Now last time, we talked about focus, and we talked about the various tools we can use to make our lives easier in achieving it more consistently. Now hopefully since the last webinar, you've taken some time to practice some of these techniques and kind of just had a chance to try it out on your own. Now if by some chance you missed the webinar, you can always catch an archive on Cinevate's website. Look under the video section, and there's a lot of great content there in addition to our archives. So feel free to just get lost browsing. It's a lot of fun. Now at any rate, on to today's subject, basic camera movement. Now as we try to increase production value of our films, we often come across situations where moving the camera is the only way we can properly convey a message to our viewers. Now today, we will investigate the concept of camera movement and see which tools will help us move our cameras more easily as we seek to find different ways to communicate through our lenses. Now in the world of video, camera movement is just as important as lighting, and it can often be the one thing that can take your film to the next level. So let's take a look at something to see just exactly what I'm talking about. Now in the previous video, we took a collection of static shots to create our story. That worked pretty well, but adding a little movement to the footage can help us establish and create context to the scene a little more easily. So take a look at this next video and see what we changed to see and understand exactly what we're talking about here. So comparing those two videos, can you see how adding some basic camera movements helped us create context in the second video? By panning the camera as Brian came into the room, we were able to achieve a continuous shot that gave more continuity and context to the scene. Now the basic act of panning and tilting a camera can do a lot for us as filmmakers. However, in order for us to do this effectively, we actually need a tripod specifically designed for video. Now having a tool like this is absolutely crucial if we're committed to taking our video production to the next level. Now unlike a photo tripod, a video tripod is designed to provide tension when we either want to pan or tilt the camera. Now this tension allows us to isolate movements, keep them level, and execute them smoothly for longer periods of time. Without the conveniences of a video tripod, we are forced to rely on ourselves, which can result in a lot of frustration and wasted effort. Now there are a number of different tripods out there with a variety of different features. If you're just starting out, I really recommend finding something like this Benro K7 right here. Now, it's a really affordable tripod, and it has all the basic features that we discussed today. So in addition to using a tripod to pan and tilt a camera, we can use another tool called a camera slider to physically move the camera from one place to another. Now this is entirely different than panning or tilting because the camera is not staying stationary. Instead, it's moving, which adds another dimension to our footage. by moving our cameras, we're able to add a level of production that directly mimics what we are seeing in the movies we are watching today. To get a feel for what I'm talking about, let's revisit a clip from one of the videos in last month's webinar. I remember a lot of you guys picked up on it, so let's all get on the same page and understand exactly what I mean when I talk about camera sliders. Camera sliders are great tools because they mimic the equipment currently being used in Hollywood. And they do it without the need for large crews, heavy equipment, or hundreds of feet of track. Now don't get me wrong. A slider is never going to take the place of a dolly on a set, but it's a sure great way to achieve the same look without a lot of effort, especially when we don't have Hollywood budgets. So just like a video tripod, a camera slider is a tool that can help us increase the level of our productions. However, it takes a bit of practice. So to make it easier for you, let's talk about my 4 basic tips for getting the most out of a camera slider. So my first tip is to capture in layers. And by layers, I don't mean Photoshop layers. The key to any good tracking shot is to have foreground, middle, and background material. Now, as objects get further away from the lens, they move at different rates. Having objects at different distances from the lens is a great way to emphasize the movement. Now, since we're using relatively small tracks, it's really important to compose our tracking shots purposefully. Take a look at this clip to see exactly what I'm talking about. So in addition to capturing in these layers, the second tip for getting the most out of your slider is to understand what you're getting from the overall length of the slider. Now, because most sliders are set at a fixed length, it's good to know where you'll be using the slider and for what purpose it's going to be used. Now, a lot of the time, bringing too long of a slider can be a hindrance, especially if you don't have the space to operate it. So let's go take a look and compare some of the different lengths against each other. So now that we've taken some time to understand what different slider lengths look like, a natural question should be, how do you know what length you're going to need? Now, a lot of the time, it's best to ask yourself where you're going to be using it. That often dictates what length you'll be able to use. Now, for example, are you going to be at an event? Are you traveling? If so, a 2-foot slider is the perfect length because of its mobility and versatility. If you've had time to plan out the shot and need a little bit more length, but can't sacrifice the mobility, a 3-foot slider could be the right pick. However, if you have the space and are on a multi-person production and need the length, a 5-foot slider just might be the right fit. Ultimately, it's about picking the right tool. And as we learned about the video tripod, picking the right tool for the job will always be the best decision you'll ever make. So my third tip for getting the most out of a camera slider comes with understanding how focal length affects the overall look of the footage. Now, as you will see from the next clip, using a wide-angle lens versus a telephoto lens gives the footage a completely different feel. Take a look at this to get a feel for what I'm talking about. And lastly, my final tip for getting the most out of a camera slider is knowing and understanding the basic slider movements. Generally speaking, a slider can move the camera left to right, back to front, and up and down. Understanding what each movement does for your footage is crucial in adding production value to your films. Take a look at this next clip and see how changing the direction of the slide changes the overall feeling of the footage. Now that we've taken some time to talk about how to use a slider, let's take a look at a great video from Adam Colton and the guys over at Loaded Boards. They're from Southern California, so it's going to be a great video. It's a skate video, actually. So enjoy the video, and we'll catch you on the other end.
Attention, c'est chaud!
The sky is filled with big stars, words written down like broken shards. Ink runs through my veins, calls me out, I'm still the same.
Shred it, you little beauty!
You run, I stand in place. You go,
Attention,
I see your face, your fingerprints upon the wall, my lonely footsteps in the hall.
Woo! Ça glisse!
And in the dark,
Come on, hit the frog toe!
no light, no spark.
Super califragilistique!
And
Extraordinaire!
it's
Oh, you beauty! Oh, you beauty!
my thoughts go
Génial!
round again like an old record that's got no spin. My box of lonely rhymes, my heart drawn out of broken lines, lost its sound. It's left my head.
Attention, j'arrive!
The sky is filled with paper stars, words written down like broken shards. Ink
Hey!
runs from my veins, cross me out, I'm still the same.
So the great thing about that video is that the guys from Loaded Boards used one slider for all of those shots. And it just so happens to be my favorite slider made by our friends over at Cinevate. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the Atlas 10. So that slider is available in 3 different lengths. The Atlas 10 is a versatile, lightweight, and easy to use slider. It's perfect for events and unpredictable situations and is a great solution for photographers who just need to add a little movement to add some spice to their footage. And now that we've spent some time learning about camera movement, I want to leave you with a couple things to think about as you explore this on your own. First, think about when to move the camera. As filmmakers, we are responsible for having reasons to move the camera. Being aware of these reasons will ultimately make you a better filmmaker. Second, think about what moving the camera says to your audience. Our ultimate purpose as filmmakers is to be storytellers. Use movement as a part of your filmmaking language and learn to be familiar with how a movement can impact your audience. So, that's really all we have today, guys. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and learn about the basic concepts of camera movement. So just give me a quick second. I'm going to pull out our iPad here and just start to refresh and start to field any questions you guys may have. I'm hopefully going to open up this iPad and see a bunch of stuff. So let's just go ahead and do that right now, okay? So the first question I have, I guess, is referring to the video that we just watched from Adam and the guys at Loaded Boards. And it says, what is that slider he's got there? So I think we loaned the guys from Loaded Boards that slider, and it was an Atlas 10 35-inch slider. It was the all-terrain leg version, so it could be used on uneven surfaces and stuff like that. I think even in one shot, you saw that they balanced it on top of like a rock and stuff. So it's a really great, lightweight, versatile slider that can be used in a lot of different situations. Let's see, another quick question is, how do you do a vertical movement shot? Well, that's a good question. So I'm going to use this slider as an example here. So at the end of this Atlas 10, there is a 1/4-20 and a 3/8 pattern. So what we can do is, if you've got a tripod with a quick release plate, you can attach the quick release plate here and then mount the slider vertically on that tripod via the quick release plate. And what that'll do is it'll allow you to stably raise and lower the camera. Now, what I often do is, if I'm going to go like a vertical and a vertical up and down shot, I'll hold the camera. I'll hold the camera like this with my hand, and then I'll just slowly just kind of ease it down, and that's how I get my downward shot. Verticals, I just hold it with my 2 fingers right here and kind of slowly lift up, just like that. And it does a great job, because then you can feel the weight of the camera as you're lifting it up. And if you're on a tripod, it'll stay pretty stable. Let's see here. Can I connect multiple Atlas FLTs? So the Atlas FLT, which is what I have in front of me right here, it's designed to be a fixed length. So we can't connect sliders and make a longer track out of it. If I wanted to have a 3-foot or a 5-foot track, I would get like a Atlas FLT 35-inch or an Atlas 10 5-foot, because those are actual lengths that stay at that length. If we tried to connect these rails together, where the connection point happens, you get a seam. And what ends up happening on that seam is, as a carriage passes over the seam, you get a little of a hiccup or a kick in your footage. And that kind of makes you scrap the entire shot. So we don't really connect rails in our system. We keep them at fixed lengths. A good question here is, how do you move the slider so smoothly if it's by hand and not by motor? Okay, so when I use a slider with my hands, the first thing we want to make sure that we have is some weight on the carriage. And typically a camera and a lens adds enough weight to it. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 hands. I'm going to use 2 hands, so let me stand up here. I'm going to use 2 hands right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and slowly, with both hands, move back. Now, I'm not pulling with my arms like that. That doesn't really give us a nice even movement. We want to pull from our body. So we take both hands on the carriage, and then we're going to pull back. We're going to keep our arms straight, and we're going to pull back with our body. Okay, now, like an advanced technique is you can actually use your thumb along the rail to give yourself a little bit of tension as you pull back. So I'm going to put both hands on the carriage. I'm going to put my thumb on the rail and pull back, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of tension. Now notice my arms aren't bending, because when I bend, I'm relying on some other things that really I can't control. But if I go ahead and pull back with my arms straight, I can do a really, really nice shot. Slowly, evenly paced, and do it all by hand. Let's take a look at another question here. Can I say a little bit more about the ball head that I recommend to go on top of an Atlas 10? Okay, so right now I've got an Enduro ball head on top of it. As a photographer, I've got like 3 or 4 ball heads because I kept upgrading my ball head as I kind of evolved through photography. The great thing about ball heads is that they all fit on a 3/8 screw. So really, when you're picking a ball head, there should be like a couple things you want to pay attention to. Like, is it a single or a dual action ball head? How much weight does it support? What type of quick release plate does it have? And those are all things that as photographers, we kind of already really know about. But ideally, you want to pick a ball head that's going to give you some sort of like a lock-off function. So I'm going to go ahead, and if I have an ability to kind of like level out my ball head and then lock it off so that when I move my slider, the camera doesn't kind of flop around, that's really important. And then the ability to kind of like pan the ball head and lock it off is really important too, because sometimes when you screw the ball head on, it doesn't really stay horizontal. So you want to make sure that you have that sort of functionality. Now remember, there's a huge difference. And this is kind of going off topic from that question, but there's a huge difference between a ball head and then this video head that I've got behind me. So if you notice one thing here, if I go ahead and unlock this ball head, it's going to spin, but there's no tension to it. And then if I unlock my ball head here, you know, there really isn't any tension for me to worry about the pan or the tilt. When it comes to a video head, when I go ahead and pan this, I have some resistance. And that resistance plays a huge factor in being able to pan the camera effectively and nice and slowly. So if I do a tilt, if I pull off the lock here and I do a tilt, the ability to tilt it and have some tension and have like, it almost feels like a balance. It allows me to really, when I need to move that, the camera just doesn't flop over right away. It does it nice and slowly, and it gives me the ability to gradually move the camera instead of have to battle with something that kind of like jerks around like this, you know? Hopefully that answered that question. So here's a great question about a video tripod. Why do video tripods have two struts or two little pipes on the leg sections as opposed to photo tripods? Now, these little legs here are kind of divided and separated out because it helps deal with vibrations. And a good tip when you're using a video tripod, so, and this flies in the face of what I learned as a photographer. And when I used video tripods, because I'm always lowering and raising the legs, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull this tripod and I'm going to collapse it all the way. Okay, so let's say I get to my location. The first thing I'm going to do is I want you guys to start with the bottom section. So we're going to start with the bottom section. We're going to pull the tripod open, and then we're going to spread the tripod out. Now I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense because in photography we always start with the top section. Well, in video, the reason we don't start with the top section is because if I need to raise and lower the height of my camera, all I need to do is undo the top sections and I can raise the camera and lower it very easily. In video, we always are doing this. We always are consistently and constantly raising and lowering the camera. So if I go ahead and do the top sections last, it keeps me from having to do this whole thing where I'm bending over and trying to support and support the camera for the bottom sections. Okay? So that's a really, really interesting and different tip from what I learned in photography. So video tripods, like, they're designed to really take a lot of support and a lot of vibration, so you're really safe doing it that way. Okay? How noisy is the Atlas 10 slider? So the Atlas 10 slider is an aluminum construction with a solid steel rail on the inside of this aluminum channel here. Now this carriage has 3 ball bearings affixed inside that are actually rolling along these steel rails. So noise isn't an issue because there isn't anything rattling or moving or creating any sort of a sound as I'm sliding the slider. We consider the Atlas 10 a silent slider. So I could use it in a quiet room during an interview, for example, and not have that translate into any sound that I'm capturing. I love the Atlas 10 slider. It's my favorite slider. In a 2, 3, or 5 foot length, it's really just a great and versatile slider. As you guys notice, I can be mounted horizontally. I could even, if I wanted to, because of this plate right here, center mount it onto a tripod. So I could center mount it onto a tripod and then use that little technique that we had of undoing the top blocks last, and I can raise and lower the height of that tripod really easily to raise and lower the height of the slider. Okay, so I think that really does it for our question and answer time right now, guys. But before we leave, I want to play one more video. It's from the guys over at Loaded Boards again, and Adam. So I want to say thank you to them. Thank you to you guys for coming by today. And as you watch this last video, what I really encourage you to do is I really encourage you to take a look at how Adam and the guys who created this video combine a lot of what we've already talked about. They combine camera placement, they combine focus, they combine slider movements and camera movements into a really compelling and fun video. So without any further ado, guys, here's that last video. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.